Hello, I'm Bernie Hayes. Today's guest is Taylor Tiamoyo Harris. She's a journalist, and we'll be talking about journalism and a lot of other things today on The Bernie Hayes Show. And welcome back. I'm Bernie Hayes, and let me introduce my guest to you, Taylor Tiamoyo Harris. Taylor, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Tiamoyo.
Yes.
How'd you get that name?
Oh gosh. Well, actually, that name came from Tiamoyo Karinga. She is the wife of Maulana Karinga, but also an activist and educator herself. My grandfather, Dr. Theman Ray Taylor, was an activist and also he was an educator. And they named me after Tiamoyo. It means to inspire in Swahili.
Well, Taylor Harris is a very famous journalist also. Tell me about yourself.
Famous? Oh gosh.
Yes, you are.
I hail from Dallas, Texas, proudly. I attended Howard University on a full academic scholarship, was editor-in-chief of Howard University's newspaper, still probably one of the greatest honors to this day. I covered Black communities in D.C. I went on to graduate. I covered communities and crimes and courts in New York City, in New Jersey for the state newspaper. Most recently, I was brought to St. Louis by the Post-Dispatch to cover communities, crime, courts, and public safety here for the past few years. After that, I worked for Pew Charitable Trust and the National Association of Black Journalists to examine juvenile escapes. And then most recently, proud of the New York Times investigation I worked on for the past year and looking into GPS monitors.
Tell us about that. I heard you on Jamal Rogers' show, radio program, and you were talking about monitoring and the effect of monitoring. And no one, I don't believe, that I know about even thinks about monitoring and the effects that it might have. They figure if a person wearing a monitor, they've done something wrong, perhaps,
Right.
or the court wants to be in touch with them or know exactly where they are. Tell us about the story that you did and why you did it.
And that's exactly so. Again, most people, when they see monitors, they're thinking typically monitors in previous years and decades was used for more heinous crimes and also post-conviction parole, right?
Sure.
Well, now I did an investigation because monitors have been introduced to pretrial. This is before someone is found innocent or guilty. So now this is days after an arrest. It used to be where you would go downtown or you would go pay a bail bondsman, and that's how someone would get out of jail after an arrest. But now that has been replaced in St. Louis City and largely around cities across the country by GPS monitoring. And what that is it's not the monitor itself. You do put it on your ankle. They also have some wrists, but typically they do not use those, or on your phone. But on your ankle, they have this ankle monitor, and you are tracked everywhere that you go. You have house arrest. So you give the judge, hey, what's your work schedule? What time do you pick up your kids? Where do you have to be here or there? And if you're not there, if you're not where you say that you're going to be, you get a violation. But sometimes we found that the violations aren't always accurate. We found that some people have a hard time keeping them charged. We found that some people just have a hard time adjusting to the schedule. Now, you are expected to be a productive member of society while out on this monitor. It was seen as lenient,
Sure.
It was, cash bail was seen as inhumane. You can't afford to get out of jail. I can't afford that $500 bond, right?
Sure.
So this was supposed to be a reform. And this was supposed to make life easier somewhat and more fair, I guess, and just before you're found innocent or guilty. But what I found is that those harms are still persisting. It's more so the punishment, it seems, has more so just shifted. That's what I found in the pretrial. So I followed a number of people. I had a GPS tracker. I found them who were on monitors. I talked to them about their crimes, their circumstances, their life on monitors. I found people who couldn't hold jobs. They couldn't get housing. They lost their job because of the monitor. And again, I talked to GPS experts who say, these are the things that you need to be successful on monitoring. So this was a year-long investigation, talking to people on monitors, public defenders, attorneys, experts, bail bondsmen, judges, everybody involved in this picture.
So you actually found out it's a GPS monitor, which was founded by a black woman. But
I did not know that.
Oh, yes. Okay. Oh, yeah. The monitors themselves were sometimes a hindrance more or less than a positive device. So
For a number of people, yes. And I will say there was a report a few years ago in ProPublica about St. Louis County, a national article about GPS monitor harms, but they touched on the financial harms and that people in St. Louis County and most districts, they do have to pay for the monitor. So
Really?
we're talking about $300 a month. And this is during the course of your case. So while your case is being disposed. So this could be 3 months, 6 months, or a year where you're being tracked. You have not been found innocent or guilty, but again, you have that stigma. People are looking at you, having a hard time keeping up with your job, housing. There are just a lot of issues that people have had with the monitors. I will say the one person that did not have an issue, they say they did not have the house arrest rules. So they weren't tracked. They weren't required to be somewhere at a certain time. But the 3 people that I mentioned in my story, they did detail to me those issues they had.
You mentioned that one of the persons who was wearing a monitor was denied a job because of that. Tell us about that.
It was a number of people that told me not only were they denied jobs, but they waited to apply for jobs because they didn't want to go into an interview with a monitor on.
Sure.
They didn't think, in their head that they would be able to be hired. And if they were also worried about running into certain places if they DoorDash, having to stay away from a certain area, that radius. Like I said, some people just waited until the monitor was off. They're like, okay, I think this case will be done in 3 months. Maybe I can just hold off on my jobs. Other people talked about discrimination that they faced at their jobs while on the monitor, a contractor or maybe someone. I talked to a mother who cleaned homes who had charges, and she said, yeah, her charges got dropped, but she was uncomfortable going into people's homes with the monitor on.
Was it disproportionate African Americans?
I would say yes, largely 99%. I think maybe 3 or 4 people I maybe talked to were not, but it was largely African American, Black males. Typically, I would say between 20 and 40.
Wow.
Yes.
When you approached the people about the story, were they positive with you? Were you turned off or what? Tell us about that investigative mood.
About trying to find people because it's one thing I heard about this problem and people knew about it. If you recall, there was an incident revolving around GPS monitors with Daniel Riley in that situation when there was a big case when he ran over a young lady who unfortunately lost her limbs. And so approaching people talking about monitors, I will say this, they were fed up.
Really?
The people, seriously, I ran into some people outside of the courthouse and outside of courtrooms who were like pleading with their lawyer, like, this is driving me crazy. I can't do this. It was a misunderstanding. The lead of my article, a young lady named Kyla Mason, I opened up my article with a Black woman who was pregnant on the monitor. I found her outside the courtroom. I was listening. I used to go to detention hearings in court. These are the hearings that are held after you are arrested, either your 48-hour hearing or your 7-day. And this is to determine what your bond is. Will you be let out of jail or not? So I used to sit in those hearings. They hold them every day in St. Louis City and County. And I would listen to people who had issues with their monitor, which is frankly a number of people. At a time, there were about 70% of people who were released from St. Louis had a monitor on in a period of time. So almost everybody had some issues with the monitor or some updates with the monitor violations. And so I heard with hers, there was an issue and they said that it wasn't her fault necessarily. And in court, she was talking about how much it was a problem for her. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I have to go up and talk to her. So she was outside of the courthouse and I sat next to her. I introduced myself. I told her what I was trying to do. I wanted to learn more about this issue. You can only do so much without talking to people directly.
Sure. Yeah.
You can look at studies, you can hear from experts, but we need to hear from people directly. And so that's what I did with people. I got some people from attorneys, public defenders may have given me some people. But for the most part, I just went up to people and talked. I talked to some advocacy groups. I spoke to classes. I really just set out to, again, understand this issue directly from people.
Wow. This is interesting, and that's a year-long investigation.
It was. I pitched this story in actually fall of 2024, I believe. It might have been 2023, but I've been working on this for quite some time. I've been a criminal justice reporter in St. Louis, so I've covered some things, the Lamar Johnson case. I've covered criminal justice, the DFOB, the jails, and really just progressive reforms here in St. Louis. So this was just building on that coverage.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Taylor Tiamoyo Harris is my guest, and we're talking about actually reform and so forth. But she's an investigative reporter. We'll be back to talk more with her after this.
Bernie Hayes has been a blessing for so many years through the great broadcasting talents that God has given him. He's helped so many people to get a deeper and richer understanding of our community. Now, it's important that you tell your family and friends about the NLEC TV app, because Bernie's continuing to bring his great guests on, and the way that they can get it now is go to NLEC TV on their app. You've experienced it, now share it with others. We need everyone tuning in to the Bernie Hayes Show, because Bernie takes us behind the scenes and helps us to get a deeper understanding of issues that affect our community. His broadcasting has been such a gift from God for so many years. Now we need to share that gift. So tell your family, tell your friends, hey, have you watched the Bernie Hayes Show? Well, you need to. And not only do you get to see Bernie Hayes when you go on the NLEC TV app, but you get all kinds of inspirational programming. You get to learn about the needs in our community and the poor and the homeless. In addition to that, there's great classical movies there. There's music on NLEC Here's Help Radio Network. I mean, there's just so many things awaiting those that go to the NLEC TV app. So do a favor, give a gift to your family and friends and tell them about the app. To go to the App Store, bring up NLEC TV. And again, explore all the other things, the creation videos that are on there, the classical movies that are there, the inspirational radio programming, and of course, the 24 hours of TV, and the community programming, and all that and much more. So tell everyone you know about the NLEC TV app, and let them know the Bernie Hayes Show is still coming through strong and heavy.
God loves a cheerful giver. Even though things are really tough right now, you can make a difference in the lives of so many. New Life has been doing this work for 50 years, and we have seen God's gracious goodness through people like you who have participated in this work. There are so many people who are suffering. More people are becoming homeless for the first time with the rising costs of inflation and food and housing and so many other commodities. We need help. You can make a difference today in the lives of so many by giving your tax-deductible gift to P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri. Or go to newlifeevangelisticcenter.org or call to get involved in this incredible work.
Welcome back. My guest is Taylor Tiamoyo Harris, and she's an investigative reporter. Tiamoyo, how did you get interested in journalism and why?
How did I get interested in journalism? Honestly, it started out with a love for writing, but journalism is more than that, right? It's the impact we have in people's lives. So I played sports, and I was like, okay, I like to write, and I played sports. I needed another class to take, and I had somewhat of an interest. I read newspapers often. Back then, I guess it was still, newspapers were around. I would say it was like 2008 or so in high school. But I told my grandparents, and they said, okay. So my mom got me in a newspaper class, and I excelled at that. And they said, okay, we really want you to excel at this. So my grandfather suggested that I work at a newspaper. And that didn't happen immediately. And he suggested that I freelance. And so I just started writing about subjects that I cared about. I was the same age as Trayvon Martin when he was killed. And I wrote columns about that, and I pitched that to black papers all over the country, and some of them published it. My first internship was at a black publication, the Dallas Elite News. Okay. And from then I went to the Dallas Morning News. But I fell in love with impact. I fell in love with the impact that I had as a journalist. It was more than just writing, more than just getting quotes from people. One of the first major stories where I saw that I had impact, someone in my high school was killed. I was a sophomore. It was between sophomore and junior year. He was a basketball player. And most of the papers around town was just talking about how good he was at basketball and the incident itself. And no one really talked about who he was as a person or our town, our city, our neighborhood. And so I actually ended up covering his vigil because my teacher asked me to. That was my first time doing something like that. Most journalists, you start covering funerals and obits and vigils later on in your career. But he pushed me to do that. And I didn't understand it. I was quoting people, taking pictures, getting notes. And then he said, let's hold it. And then we waited until basketball season started, and we re-interviewed some of the players and coaches and asked them about how they were continuing, this year without their star player and what that meant to them and how they were honoring his life. And so I ended up putting a feature together that wasn't just like, star basketball player killed and his name in the end, but it was a full-fledged feature, and it actually ended up being an award-winning piece. But more importantly, his teammates, his coach, and even his parents told me how much that meant to them. And they even put a plaque on it and hung it up in the gym. And that was the first time. I was like 15 or 16. And I was like, wow, this is the impact that you can have on people's lives. And I was like, I think I want this as a career.
That's wonderful. Did you find any gender discrimination in your job?
Surely. I started out in sports. Okay. So I played basketball and volleyball. So I didn't know how I would get into journalism because I was a little intimidated, just seeing stars, seeing radio stars and newspaper and TV. You're like, how am I going to fit in? So I'm like, well, the only thing I know for sure is sports. And of course, people question you when you're a woman in sports. They question your intent, your knowledge of the game, constantly quizzing you. So I found that. But I will say this. I was reluctant initially to use my middle name in my byline. I like the ambiguity of just Taylor Harris. Some people don't know what race or what gender or anything that I am with that. Yeah. But I was encouraged to later on in my career. But yeah, I definitely faced discrimination, I would say, on the sports realm. But I would say this, media has always had a diversity issue. We talk about discrimination, but just being able to understand each other. I mean, most of the newsroom that I've served in, I've always been one of the only black people and probably the only black woman. Most recently at the Post-Dispatch, I was the only black news reporter for the past 4 years. They had Kevin Johnson, the legend that he is, and that was music and entertainment, but I was the only black person covering, politics, business, real estate, education, news, breaking news. And so, that's the issue. So I definitely always highlight that, but that's, most newsrooms that I've been in. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your association with the Greater St. Louis Association of Black Journalists.
Yes.
You actually led that organization for a while, didn't you?
You said what I'm saying?
You led it. You had it for a while.
I did. I would say it was a full circle moment. So I didn't mention in high school, I got started through the Dallas-Fort Worth Association of Black Journalists. I participated in their high school workshop for 2 years, my junior and senior year. And so I joined at Howard. When I went there, in any city that I moved to, I immediately went to the local Association of Black Journalists. That's always been a home for me. Members have always welcomed me. I did not know that would lead to the opportunity to serve in St. Louis, but I proudly did that. I served as vice president of the organization, the Greater St. Louis Association of Black Journalists. I also went on to serve as president, education committee chair, and then president of the Minority Journalism Workshop. So it was a labor of love because all those positions I just named are unpaid and it's volunteer, but it was full circle. I mean, the Association of Black Journalists and its members have been great to me. I've received local and national scholarships, mentorship, help along the way, a support system. So I was happy to do so.
Who are you working for now?
I am now I haven't announced it, but I'm actually working with 9PBS right now. I'm actually also an independent consultant and freelance investigative journalist.
Okay, so what's your future?
Well, I told you I am interested in teaching. I've always wanted to be a journalism professor. I didn't know when it would happen in my career. I guess you could say maybe wanting to follow in my grandfather's footsteps. He taught history for 30 years at the University of Central Arkansas, but I've always had an interest in teaching, so I'm not sure. Maybe you can give me some tips about that.
Perhaps. But this is a passion. Tell us about your experience at Howard.
Oh, my goodness. Howard University, it was my dream school. I was fortunate enough to attend. So my freshman year was also former President Barack Obama's inauguration year. So I remember we just being excited about a black president in college, and we were freshmen. We all ran to the White House from Howard's campus. It was like a different world if everybody's seen that. I loved it. I was editor-in-chief of Howard University's newspaper again. Of all the positions, I worked at the Washington Post, Thomson Reuters, ABC News, New York Times, Dallas Morning News, Post-Dispatch. The honor of my life is being editor-in-chief of Howard University's newspaper, serving as editor-in-chief, really covering student life, local news. I really learned the functions of the business. It was hard, especially as a senior, but worth the trouble.
Some of the graduates of Howard, Kamala Harris, did you interview her or tell us your opinion of Kamala Harris?
Yes, well, I did not interview her. She is also a member of the Alpha chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as am I. And yes, I mean, she did make history. And so, yes, I mean, I've never had the opportunity to interview her, but I would gladly take that opportunity. I've worked in criminal justice, more so politics, so I mean, the opportunity is there. I think it just depends on whoever hires me next.
What advice would you give for African Americans, especially African American women who want to choose a career in journalism?
Wow, what advice do I give?
Well, you've made it. You've made it. Believe me. You've made
What
it.
advice? Well, I've always, to specifically Black women, I've always, again, leaned on the Association of Black Journalists. I encourage that no matter where you are. They usually have a chapter in most major cities. I would also encourage, I've always leaned on my elders and my mentors and the veterans in this industry, to be honest. I've always been very much so connected to them, but I've always reached back also while I'm climbing. So I've kept in contact with, veterans and been my mentors and supports, but also people in my age group and even younger people. And I've learned from them as well. So just keeping in contact with everybody. I think sometimes some people only want to talk to people in their age group and they're kind of intimidated by the veterans in the industry, or maybe only want to talk to them and like kind of ignore people in their own age group. And we all need each other on every level. So that's my encouragement.
Okay. It's so thrilling talking to you, and you've done so much in the industry.
Thank you.
It's just wonderful. I know that you're going to have a wonderful future. We're talking to Taylor Tiamoyo Harris, and she's a journalist, and investigative journalist, which is very important. Investigative journalist. But we're at the New Life Evangelistic Center, 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri, where Reverend Larry Rice has been supporting those in need for over 53 years. We'll be back with Taylor Harris after this.
I'm so excited that you've discovered the NLEC TV app. I pray that you share that with your family and friends, because it's just one of the many ways that we want to share that there's hope, Christ is risen. You've been to the app, you've seen all the things they have, the Here's Help Radio Network, live streaming concerning creation, and all kinds of different things there. So please tell everyone you know about the NLEC TV app and also the New Life Zoe free paper. If you haven't gotten a copy of the New Life Zoe free paper, call us at 314-421-3020. We'll be happy to send you a copy of the New Life Zoe free paper. This issue not only talks about the tornado, but it has all kinds of inspirational writings in there and so much more for you and your family. In fact, if you want to drop by 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri, you can pick up a bundle to share, or 806 North Jefferson in Springfield. Now join us in helping us to get the good news out to a hurting world. Tell everyone you know about the NLEC TV app and help us distribute the New Life Zoe free paper. We want everyone to know that there's hope, Christ is risen, and what a big difference that makes in the lives of each and every one of us.
Today's subject, Dorothy Height, born March 24th, 1912 in Richmond, Virginia. During a chance encounter with African-American leader Mary McLeod Bethune, Height was inspired to begin working with the National Council of Negro Women. Height focused on ending the lynching of African Americans and reconstructing the criminal justice system. In 1957, she became the fourth president of the National Council of Negro Women, and under her leadership, they supported voter registration in the South, and they also financially aided several civil rights activists throughout the country, and she was president for more than 40 years. In 1963, Height, along with other civil rights activists, organized the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And for all her efforts, the civil rights movement, Height was awarded and recognized in many organizations. In 1989, she received the Citizens Medal Award from President Ronald Reagan, and in 2004, Height was honored by the Congressional Gold Medal. The same year, Height was inducted into the Democracy Hall of Fame International. She also received an estimated 24 honorary degrees. On April the 10th, 2010, Height passed away at the age of 98. Dorothy Height.
Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in the green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
And welcome back. I'm Bernie Hayes. My producer and director, Bob Dimler, wanted to know from Ms. Harris, with the newspapers' decline of so many different print journals, so many print places to work, What's on the horizon for you? What do you think about the
Right.
decline of journalism, print journalism?
That's reality. Just seeing this industry decline. I mean, look, I was told that when I entered this industry. When I said I wanted to be a newspaper reporter, even in high school, my teachers were like, "Are you sure?" But I think there will always be news. We are going to change the format. I've had to force myself to get into the digital space. I've also expanded. I've also been a communications consultant. I work with different groups here in St. Louis. So I've expanded my skills, but also I think, newspaper and even TV and even radio, we're just expanding to the digital space. So I'm continuing to learn those skills. I'm not worried. There will always be a need for somebody to verify information. I would just say the unknown is the format for now.
What about the matter of truth? Tell us about how you go about writing a story, more or less, and get the
Right.
facts, the true facts.
The truth, the facts. I guess you say these days the truth is subjective, but I'm always cognizant of who I center in my stories. I've always made a point, I would say this, not to be a police stenographer. It's not police says, police says, police says. That's one record of fact, but you also can talk to people that were on the scene. You also can verify what police are saying by looking at public records, by looking at policy, by filing public records requests, by talking to people off the record. I don't take anybody's word. I look at the issue from every side. I mean, in all my stories, even though some may say I'm critical of police, but I also write articles about the struggles that police face as well. So I'm looking at all sides of the story, and I think that's important when putting the truth out there. Don't just, copy and paste a police press release.
Oftentimes, there's more than one side of the story then.
Always.
How can one reach you?
The best
a
way to
website?
reach me. So I actually just made social media pages. That's what I should have put on there. But my website is Tiamoyo, my middle name, Tiamoyo.org. But I just made social media pages. It's by Tiamoyo, my middle name. I'm on everything. I just made TikTok, just made Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, YouTube, Facebook. So every social media platform you can think of, I just made them recently in the past few months. So you
Tiamoyo.
can find me there. And yes,
Tiamoyo. Tell us some of the places you've worked. We have about 2 minutes left.
yes. So I've worked, I'm actually going to do a ranking soon on social media too. I've worked in Dallas, where I'm from. I've worked in Washington, D.C. I covered Southeast D.C., that's Marion Barry's district. I also worked in New Jersey. I covered the whole state, but Newark and Union County and also Middlesex County. I've worked in New York, lived in Manhattan, lived in Brooklyn. Also lived in Fort Knox, Kentucky. Did not see the gold, but that was a unique experience working with the Army. Also St. Louis. I will say this, I'm proud to have been here. Sometimes people ask me, you've worked in some bigger cities and then coming here. But this is one of my favorite communities to cover locally. I've learned a lot from legends like you here and other people who've invested into me. So I'm proud to have been in St. Louis as well.
Okay, I asked you this earlier, but I want to ask you once again. 5 years from now, where will you be?
Oh my goodness. Only God knows, to be honest. I really do not know. I'll be honest with you. I think maybe I'll be a professor at a college, maybe still being an independent freelancer. I can say more so right now, I'm attracted to the subjects and the company, and the projects that I'll cover. Not just looking, I guess, at any old position. I really want to find a passion project. But education, I guess you can find me there, hopefully.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here, spending
Thank you
time
for
with us
inviting
today. Taylor Tiamoyo Harris.
Thank you.
Famous byline here in the city of St. Louis, and I'm sure it's going to be singing it many, many times as we
I hope so.
on our journey. And I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting the New Life Evangelistic Center. We're 2428 Woodson Road in Overland, Missouri, 63114. And Reverend Larry Rice, like I said, more than 53 years has been providing services for those in need. Right now, we need your help and support. And we do that by bringing back some perishable items, non-perishable items, water, hygienic items, for those in need. And we need your help. We need your support. Everything is tax deductible. 2428 Woodson Road, Overland, Missouri, New Life Evangelistic Center. I'm Bernie Hayes. Have a great day. Until next time.